So NLDS is the one part of it, but then once we've done the release, then it's quite useful to see what's been happening there. So this is why I mentioned the release statistics. So going to this link at the bottom, you get to see what is in the release, and this is the release that was produced at the end of February, and you can see how the hierarchies, how does it is it distributed across the hierarchies. The largest is obviously clinical findings, and then procedures, and then body structure, anatomy, and then it kind of goes down at that point. But it's very interesting information, I find, to sometimes share with people to explain what is SNOMED, what is in SNOMED. It also allows us to see how many new concepts there are, how many have been activated, what's been changed, and you can see more information about. And, again, this just takes you to the point about how big SNOMED is. 355,000 or so concepts, and where they found. So it's a useful thing to understand what's in SNOMED. If people ever ask, it's quite handy just to bring back here. So that's updated monthly, and that's just the international edition at the moment. So the next thing to go to, I think, really is the browser. So I'm sure some of you have seen the browser before, but it's quite useful to walk through it, mainly because it's really the vast majority of users' first way into SNOMED CT. It brings them into the browser, into understanding what is SNOMED, how does it hang together. SNOMED is very, compared to a lot of other terminologies and standards in healthcare, being an ontology, it's a bit of a different beast than some of the other ones are. So whilst it has a taxonomy, it also has an ontology. So you have multiple parents and multiple relationships. And that powerful modeling is something that is much easier to demonstrate through something like a browser than explain it. So we built the browser about 7 years ago, and it's become more, more popular than we expected it to. And so on our browser, we host the international products, so International Edition and Spanish Edition, but we also host all the extensions that have been uploaded or been made available to us. So all the ones here you can see are all the countries that produce an extension. The only countries that we haven't got on here at the moment is the UK, because they host it themselves, Spain, because they use a different system, and there was one more. Oh, Singapore. We haven't got the Singapore extension here either, because they produce SNOMED a bit differently. So these are all the different extensions with the different translations as well. Here you can see there's a button to the release stats, the thing I just showed you, so you can get to it from here as well. Like other tools, if you wanted to, you could translate. We could provide you the file for you to translate this into another language. So it is multilingual. At the moment, we have it in these languages, so I can show it to you here in French, and it just switches around depending on your user and where you come from. Obviously, as with most places, it defaults to international English. This service actually uses our terminology server called Snowstorm, which I will talk about as well behind the scenes. So everything you can do through the browser is pretty much exposed through the APIs of our terminology service. So if I just quickly take you into the International Edition, this is the default page. The default view is to search. I always use Asthma as the easiest one to search. And here you can see I get a very quick search back of all the descriptions that contain the word asthma. The ones in red are inactive, so I can change that filter to only show me active content. So here you can see asthma appears in lots and lots of, there's 546 terms that contain the word asthma. Here, this is really the concept summary. Above you have the parents, you have all the children and further descendants, so I can keep on scrolling further. And you've got the parent and the concept itself. So clinical finding is one of the top hierarchies. You can see the taxonomy at the moment. Here's clinical findings. So if I just click on this one, that takes me right to the top of the taxonomy. And you can see here are all the high level hierarchies we have. So body structure, clinical findings, pharmaceuticals, procedures. There's a whole load of things in here, substances. But then, of course, like any taxonomy, you can scroll down. And you can also see here it has the descendant counts on, so it shows you how much is in that hierarchy. So So I can keep on going down and it gives you the direct children each time you go down the taxonomy. If I go back to my search and now I want to have a look at the asthma content, here you see it's got one parent, but you can see I've got all the descriptions, all the synonyms that are linked to a particular concept. But the powerful thing around SNOMED is you can have multiple synonyms, even in other languages, but it's the identifier, the SNOMED CT ID never changes. And that's really one of the powerful interoperable points of SNOMED CT. And here you can see it has a relationship here, which is an attribute, we call them, and a finding site that the asthma is found on the airway structure, which is yes, obviously. And here you can see all its children. If you go to something a little bit more, interesting. So myocardial infarction. Here again, you can see it has multiple parents. And again, if I want to, I can scroll up the taxonomy as well, so I can go and see where that goes to. So there's a lot of, and it always ends up in disease eventually. You can see here, whilst the clinicians will know this is myocardial infarction, I'm very much not a clinician, so I know this is heart attack, and I can see that there's a synonym on here of heart attack. So again, you can use different synonyms to describe the same concept, and you can see all its children. You can get more details about the concept as well, and this really gives you, here are all the descriptions that are available. You know, we have things called the preferred term, which is the starred ones, that's myocardial infarction, and that's the one that's really recommended to display in your local systems. And you see in different languages, so we have, well, English, International English and GB English. It's there historically more than anything else. And then you have all the attributes that are produced, are part of this concept. In the diagram, this is a diagrammatic way of using it. It's more of interest of when you're looking at a particular concept. This is not something you would expect to see in implemented systems, but it's when you're managing SNOMED CT or researchers or students generally tend to use these. We have expressions to explain. You can explain a concept as an expression. So you can see the expression of myocardial infarction is this one, and it's quite a long one, but you can do this, and this is kind of an example of post-coordination to exist a pre-coordinated term. We also then have the reference set. So what reference set is myocardial infarction part of? Well, it's part of the International Patient Summary. It's part of the General Practice, Family Practice Reference Set. It's also used in some maps. So here you can see it's in the SNOMED CT to MEDRA map and the SNOMED CT to ICD-10 map, and here's the equivalent code on there. If this is a reference set, you would see its members. You can also go and see its history, which can be quite interesting to see. You know, obviously this is one of those concepts that was created at the beginning of SNOMED CT when it merged SNOMED RT and READ codes together in 2002, but it's had some changes throughout the years. And so it's sometimes interesting to see what it looked like in the past. But you can also go and see what's referenced, so what uses it. So here you can see, let's have a look. This is all children, it's an ISA. After is, so here we have some concepts that have myocardial infarction as an after attribute. So post-infarct angina, if we look at that, I think that will basically show, let's take that concept and have a quick look. So that will show that it has an after attribute of myocardial infarction. So you can use the browser. It's a really useful tool to get around the terminology, understand what's there. You can also run expression constraint queries, and this is really, they call expression constraint language, but this is really, I suppose, the query language of SNOMED. How do you find things in a more interesting way? So you're finding all the descendants of a concept. So, or where does a concept where the attribute is this, for example. So things like that is how you build up an ECL. And we have something called the Ecl Builder, which allows us to say, give us all descendants of, let's say, disease. So that should give us disorder. And I could say add refinements. I want to find where after attribute equals myocardial infarction. That should come back if I spelled it correctly. think so. Why is it not coming back? Because this is the demo. If everything worked first time in a demo, then there'd be something wrong with the demo. So I'm not quite sure why that's not coming back. Typical. Okay. Basically, eventually we can. No, I'll just cheat and I'll take disease for that and put this there like so. So it means that I can take this output here, which is give me all the diseases where the after attribute is after. There we go. It's come back now. So if I try, see if that works. There we go. So here we go. I want to get all the diseases that have an attribute which is after a myocardial infarction. So give me everything that happens after a myocardial infarction. I get this query then posted into the window here. And when I run this, I get the 26 concepts that have this. So you can see all the post-infarct angina, the ones we found. So you can use this tool to try out queries as well and create queries. So it's an interesting tool to play with. So it's definitely one worth using. It's one that we know a lot of is used in a lot of universities and educational environments. And so that's available to you. As with everything as well, this is also an open source tool. As I said, it works on top of our terminology server. So anybody can use it, anybody can download it, and anybody can run it. So it's something that we do see people using this locally, especially the terminology server that I'll talk about in the future. Just to see what that looks like in other languages. So if I pick off, let's pick off Canadian edition. So the Canadian edition obviously has US English or Canadian English and French. And here you can see just on the first one, you have the English and the French. So again, the translation is the same ID. If we just find infarct again. And here you can see, whilst you had all the English, you also have the French terms as well. So again, same concept ID, just extra terms. So, you know, when you get to start to translate and we have a Thai extension that goes into the browser, similarly, you would see the same thing. You would see, you'd see the Thai version synonyms in here. And so you can see everything in the view. And then when you look on the search, you can see as well, there's little flags to show. Aliara, could you mute the channel, please? It's making some bit of noise. Sorry, just some background noise. So you can see when you do the search that you actually get flags where the translations. So it allows you to see the different translations as well. And one final thing to show you in the browser is we have this button here, which allows you to browse all editions at the same time. So again, if I come in here and I basically say, it's a little bit different because we can't see a taxonomy because everybody has concepts everywhere, but it allows to search across it. So I'll do a search on asthma. And in here, you'll see it takes a bit longer because it's going through all the extensions that are on the site at the moment, but it will list down all the concepts that come back or all the terms. And you can see you have some terms that are in Belgium. If I keep on going, here's one and concept that's created in the Netherlands. There's a translation in Danish, Belgium, Netherlands again, Sweden. There's a persistent asthma in the US, so that you can kind of see what other people do. Asthma herb extract in the Australian extension. So it's another way of seeing what else is out there in other extensions that can be useful to understand. Sometimes it's a very interesting way to kind of approach other countries to understand what are they doing. If they're working in similar areas that you're working in, it's sometimes interesting to collaborate to see where you can work together. So that's the browser. Any questions from anybody on the browser?
Yes, I have a question in the slide. It's about exporting. When we run the HTML query, or we see the the website member, can we export it to other format like CSV, Excel, or other thing?
No. So that's on purpose. So it's a great question, and it's a regular question. The reason we don't do that is because we really wanted to make this browser available to everybody without user accounts and logins. And if we start to allow people to download, then we kind of contravene the license, and our members generally aren't very happy. So we don't allow to download it, is the quick answer. But what we do is, and I'll show you the reference set tool in a second, where you can download, because you'll have an account and you can download at that point. So yeah, so I'll show you, but there is an API behind this that allows you to query the API. So, and I'll show you that as well. That's our Snowstorm terminology server. And this is the browser uses that. So you can go to the APIs. You could make the calls to the APIs and look that way. So for example, if I just to quickly show you, I've lost my expression now, but if this is just to show you what the APIs look like. We'll come on to this in a second. So this is the list of the APIs that are used by the browser and on our terminology server. But for those who work with APIs will understand what we're looking at, but those not, these are essentially kind of the gateway to make a request programmatically instead of having to click everywhere. So if you built an application, you would call these things, your system would call these things and get the results back. So for example, if I wanted to find concepts, so here you can see there's what we call an endpoint called find concepts. I say this is going to be just on main, just because that's the main branch. And I can say I want to search for asthma. And there's a lot of other options that I won't go into now. But if I click on this, it gives me a JSON representation. And what that looks like, just so you can see that in big, it looks like this, where it essentially lists all the different versions. So you can see there's asthma, there's asthmatic bronchitis. This is the programmatic way to get information from a terminology server. And the terminology server that we use, which is Snowstorm, does this in Fire as well. So you can do this through a Fire call, and kind of, it's the same type of thing. It's just a different type of API, essentially. So to your question, could you export the result of an ECL query? Well, yes, because you could actually pass the ECL query into an API and you could get the results back, and you get them back in a JSON format. So there is a way to do it. It's not something that we necessarily make big and public because it's generally for members, not for people who are not member countries. And also, just to be aware on this API, there is a rate limit because it's not supposed to be a live system. So we do have systems that keep an eye on to make sure that we don't get people who doing things they shouldn't be doing, basically. So.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I was gonna ask about the rate limit things, but so like if I want to use it for like something that I need the number of requests more than the limited, the rate that you limit, how would I do that? How can I host this system myself, something like that, or?
Yes, absolutely. So what we say for the system is that this is a development system. So this is for you to play with, to try it out. But if you want to put it into a production environment where anyway you'd want to control that system anyway with more control, then yes, you can run this. So if I just go, let me just get to the, I'll show you, sorry, running around. So in our GitHub repository, oh, I don't want to do any of that. There we go. So Snowstorm is a terminology server. It is open source. There's a lot of instructions here on how to run it.
Okay.
You can use Docker. You can use other things. So either you can run it or give it to your teams to run, and they can run this without any extra cost. They can load in SNOMED CT. One of the things we do, and I don't know if this has been mentioned already by Liara, but we do run developer training days where we walk through teams how to load up the terminology server, how to put SNOMED on there, how to add things and remove things from it. So we have some training around that. The e-learning course, the terminology services e-learning course, I think it's called. I'm terrible with names, but there's a course we have online that will kind of show you how to do this as well. But the instructions are here, all available. So this you could do today. So you could absolutely run this locally.
Okay.
So yes,
This GitHub repository come with the data set already, right?
No. So you need to download,
right? And then I need to like download the database, the SNOMED database, and plug it in.
Yeah, you basically go to, so you'd go to MLDS, the system I was showing you earlier, you would sign up, you would download SNOMED CT, and then here you go. It's, the instructions are all here exactly on how to do it. Very straightforward. So we don't include the data with it because then that's just open for everybody. But it means that you just download and upload it. It takes about half an hour, if that, and then it's ready for you to use how you want to.
Basically, I need the GitHub, this GitHub repo, and then the database that I need to download.
Correct. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. So we tried to make it as simple as possible. So there is a bit of work. There is a bit of technical knowledge needed, obviously. These do run on servers more than necessarily desktops.
A little bit more question. Very quick. The database I'm downloading, if I sign up for the stuff you recommend, will they come with a schema, how to use it?
So it's not necessarily a database. So what you download in SNOMED is what we call these RF2. So it's release format 2 files, and they represent the SNOMED CT data model. So
I mean, like, I'm asking in case I don't use this browser things from GitHub, and I just want to write my own version. Can I do that?
So what we have, yeah, absolutely. So what we have here is we have a load of database loader scripts that you could use. So once you get the RF2 files, this repository will show you how to do it in MySQL or Neo4j or Postgres or so. Yes,
so this script convert this data into any of this format, right? Neo4j or SQL stuff.
Correct.
And I can use that standard format myself.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thanks a lot. This is very helpful. Thank you.
No worries.